Today I'll be using D2 biological solution to clean up this slant headstone. D2 is the most popular cleaning solution for headstones such as this. It's a biodegradable, easy to use liquid that removes the staining from mold, mildew, algae, and air pollutants. It's been proven effective on many different types of surfaces, and in 2011 it was part of an executive presidential order, and the National Cemetery Association now uses D2 biological solution as well. When cleaning the really old gravestones, D2 is the only product I use. Sometimes, when the stone is older and very brittle, D2 can be used to be sprayed on and left to sit, and after a few months, the stone clears up a whole lot. To begin this headstone cleaning process, I had a committal service earlier this morning, so when I arrived to the cemetery, I found the stone that needed cleaned and treated it with D2 biological solution and let it soak for just about 3 hours, which really helped pull those stains out and loosen up all the algae and lichens that were built up over the nameplates. For my cleaning supplies, I use a whole bunch of water, a small pump sprayer with D2 biological solution, and a large pump sprayer full of water. When it comes to the brushes, I have different soft brushes for each application. To begin the cleaning process, I use a large, soft bristle brush that really helps get everything sudsy and work all the different solution into all the different lettering, lines, and engravings. I then come in with a softer, smaller scrub brush that can really help work the bristles into each of the lines and into the names. And then I'll come around with a very small soft bristle brush that I can really use to work and make sure that I remove all the algae out of each part of the engraving. The other tools I have is a squeegee to help get the water off the bases, a scraper to help remove the larger pieces of algae, which it needs to be wood or plastic, never use any type of metal product on a headstone, and I also have some soft angle brushes that I use to get in between the foundation and the headstone itself at that 90-degree angle. I also use a weed trimmer and a leaf blower to make sure I can prepare the stones and access all the different points of the foundation to make sure the foundation is nice and clean as well. This foundation is granite, so I will use granite polish on the foundation when it's done. Typically I do not use the granite polish on the faces of the headstone. Because the nameplates are etched and engraved, the polish will actually soak in to where the nameplates are, and it doesn't make it look clean. Although it doesn't hurt the stone, it makes wherever the polish goes seem wet, and it just doesn't look professional to me. So I save the granite polish for granite foundations and granite benches that don't have engravings. I also have 3 different nozzles on my pump sprayer, a fan, a cone, and a stream. The stream really helps to make sure that all that algae and lichens and moss that I loosened up from inside the engravings will break loose and pop out. The fan setting works perfect for moving all the water in one direction to help clean off all the dirt and grime that accumulates on the foundation. One thing that should never be done in a cemetery, no matter what type of headstone it is use a pressure washer. Although granite, concrete, marble, limestone, and sandstone are all hard rocks, these are not as strong as you may think they are. Especially during the engraving parts, it will be extremely easy to use a pressure washer and chip out the interiors of the names, chip out where the lines have been engraved. Using a pressure washer is a bad idea no matter what you're using it for in a cemetery. This leaf blower, on the other hand, helps me out big time because as I dry the stone, I can tell if I've removed every bit of staining, and it's really hard to see that if the stone is still wet. It also helps me remove all the excess water from the foundation so that I don't leave any mud behind, because once that dries, the stone will look dirty again on the foundation. One thing about D2 is it is a very expensive product, but if you want a good product that's the correct product for the job, it may cost you some money. A standard squirt bottle runs around $35 after shipping, and a gallon can run between $70 and $80. But it's worth it to bring these headstones back to life. The last thing I do before letting this stone fully dry and applying another coat of D2 biological solution is add the granite polish on the base. Since the bases are flat and extremely close to the ground, they'll oftentimes have a lot of mud buildup, dirt, and grass, and it just needs a little bit of a shine to match with the top of the headstone. And even before the stone is fully dry, it looks 1,000 times better.
So the reason that I utilize a leaf blower so often is because when you're cleaning a headstone like this, oftentimes the water runs down to the bottom of the nameplates and it soaks into that porous nameplate that's been etched into the grave. The cool thing about the leaf blower is that it helps get the stones dry because you can't really tell what's a darker stain versus what is just the wet stone. Now another thing, if you saw earlier in the video, I filled up my small pump sprayer here with D2 biological solution. Now if you're using dish soap, you want to make sure that every bit of dish soap is rinsed away and cleared away from the stone, because if it dries on there, you'll get soap scum and build up and it almost looks like dryness peeling. So you don't want to leave any dish soap on the stone at all. When it comes to D2 biological solution, that's a completely different story. On a lot of the older stones that we can't get scrubbing on because we don't want to damage the stone, you can treat it with D2 biological solution, come back in a few months and it's going to be good as new. And when I say that, I mean it's going to be stain free and very clean. A lot of times if you're scrubbing on those stones, you can actually wear away the name engravings and the dates and the birthdays and the death dates. With D2 biological solution, anytime I'm done with one of these headstone cleaning jobs like this, I will give the entire stone a light coat of D2 solution before I leave. That way, if any of these darker spots at the bottom of the nameplates isn't just wet from being clean, if it still has some staining or some growth left on it, the last thing I want is for 3 months from now for this stone to go back to looking the way it was. So with the D2 on there, it helps keep things from growing back and it activates when it rains. So anything that's left on that stone alive will be killed off eventually, and it'll help prevent growth for the further coming months. So before we're done with this stone today, we're going to give it one last dose of D2, let it dry, come back in about a month and take a look to make sure everything is good to go, and see if the customer's happy when we're done. And as you can tell, it was pretty dry, but as soon as I sprayed the solution on, it darkened back up at the bottoms, it darkened up at the top, and that's where it's soaking into the stone itself. So I'm not too worried about this having any more of an issue. It should be clean. I'll come back next week when I have the surface here again, and I'll take a look at it just to make sure. And if it's not perfect, I'll treat it again with D2, but that probably won't be needed.